All right, so we are going to be continuing from where we left off last week. Last week, we had a discussion regarding the classification of the drug system, and we had several milestones regarding what we need to achieve on each session. So we've had a couple of sessions so far. The third session is what we are having right now. So the first time, we were just like talking about the initial problem discovery and how to frame the problem. And last week, we discussed how to finish up on the classification protocol. And I think we did a pretty good job of like doing it. I'll go over quickly over like what we did last time. And then today we are going to talk about like, what we're going to do with this classification in terms of legal enforcement. Okay, so this is like as we saw last time, this was a very heavy topic, and I understandably like we're not seeing a lot of people participating in this. And Sandeep, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, welcome.
Otherwise I would have to do this on my own. It won't be fun. It's not much of a brainstorming session. Yeah, so just to recap on what we did last time, right? So basically we have like various products on different configurations. Like for example, even if alcohol is one product, we are just looking at it as separate instances of this thing. And we are just like passing it through various pathways of recognizing its impact on various metrics. So there are like so many metrics that we are measuring its impact on. Scope of impact, like in different configurations, what is the impact it is having. So on the left half, you're just having things about the nature of the consumption of it, and then we are having the effects on the right side here. I think we may also like try to like divide this into like two separate sections, because some of these are like very distinct from some of these other things. So we'll do that when we're cleaning things up. Valence of effects like negative or positive, severity, permanence of it, scope of dependence, probability of impact, specificity of impact, and cost to society, and reversibility of effects. All of these are like things that we are looking at in terms of how potent a drug is, how impactful or harmful it is. And we have like come up with a way of like classifying a certain drug into various pathways. So you can say that this is an example of just like say that example classification table for a particular drug. So all these pathways pertain to the same drug, and we have like various classes, and we're putting it all in that stuff. Actually, this is the overall pathway saying that these pathways belong to this class. Yeah, sorry. And then we have now, I think today we need to look at like how do we look at like regulation of drugs based on these different pathways and different like different kinds of impacts. I think it's best to start with some examples. Like how do you look at regulation of certain things based on certain examples. I think when we do like 2 or 3 case studies, then it becomes clearer as to how to generalize that process. I don't know. Do you have any preference for which drugs you want to start with? In terms of, I think we should pick 3 drugs based on different levels of like commonsensically we understand what is the different kinds of regulation that we need to enforce on drugs.
I
So
think
let's
hemp is one because it has been used in many use cases in US for
see
because it's not.
hemp is
Yeah.
used everywhere actually. Hemp is used for even they make hemp products, like hemp handbags and
Yes,
hemp
but
products.
in India it is banned, right?
I don't think it is.
No?
Let's
Okay.
see.
I think I tried to do some cultivation of hemp and then I found out it's illegal in India, I guess.
Okay. It is banned after 1985. So this Narcotics, Drug and Psychotic Substances Act, I think maybe they did it because it creates a scope for people to use
Yeah.
um, this thing.
So this is one
Legality.
good example that they are piling up
Exactly.
on things that they don't have to.
There is a small, very interesting complication here, because as hemp by itself, right? It
Yeah.
it is not harmful, or it is useful actually. Actually, there used to be huge hemp industries,
Yes,
even in the
it's
US.
actually used in not just in the health industry. It is also used in a lot of construction, and a lot of
Yeah,
products also come out
manufacturing.
of
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
So the thing is that with hemp, right, what happens is when they cultivate hemp, it actually allows people to also use that as a gateway to do cultivation of other things, like like the other substances. First of all,
Okay.
let's look
Hmm.
at so the difference. There is like this, like it's a male and a female plant, something like this. Let's look at this
Yeah.
actually. Hi, Aniket. Were you there last time, Aniket?
No, sorry, I was not there last time, so I'm not, what we
Okay.
say, up to date with the
Yeah, just
arguments.
sure. Yeah, maybe I'll just like give you a quick recap so that like you can participate
Uh,
effectively.
can you start? Can you give me a feedback? After 5 minutes, I'm just gonna work.
Okay, fine. All right. What is hemp? So some common questions is, what is hemp? Well, how is hemp different from marijuana? Although industrial hemp is considered a member of the cannabis species, it is not a plant that can be used as a recreational drug the same way marijuana can. Currently, hemp is used for extracting CBD, even though hemp contains CBD is really low in the psychoactive, intoxicating compound THC. Hemp has been used for hundreds of years for various purposes, from rope to paper. Its composition and ease of cultivation have made it a great option for use in many products. Federal law, whatever. Marijuana is still illegal on a federal level. However, each state has a unique law surrounding hemp and marijuana. Many states now allow for the medicinal uses of marijuana by considering patients. It's probably outdated information, actually. Uses of hemp and marijuana. Cultivation of hemp. Despite both being cannabis, marijuana are grown differently. Marijuana cultivators need to carefully monitor temperature and humidity throughout every stage of the grow. Each plant is grown far apart from each other. Nutrient intake is efficiently controlled. Hemp, on the other hand, requires a simpler growing process to grow. Plants grow close together in a wide variety of conditions. Cultivations are able to grow hemp quickly. It's Let's actually look at the difference between. Okay, it's basically the same stuff. It's not like male and female. It's just like two species of the same, of two different species of plant. Yeah. I think the problem with this, right? In India, it's being banned. I think they're not offering a very clear delineation of what is hemp and what is marijuana. Maybe that's why they want to club it all together and then like just ban everything.
It's because it's kindly related to marijuana. They
Yeah,
just put the same regulations on both of them.
yeah. So you mentioned something about like you wanted to look into the cultivation of hemp. What was that? Can you explain a little bit more?
Yeah, I think about 4 5 years ago, I was into this bioplastic, movement, and then I found out this hemp is one of the alternatives for plastic.
Right.
So there is a very huge industry growing in USA that they make this single use items from hemp.
Hmm.
So I thought that could be because of the Indian geography, probably we can then there could be a market for export. So I tried to explore what can we do in India, and then I found out it's actually illegal. So
Hmm. Okay. So I think our what we can do is in this session is basically we'll just look at take each thing, and then like we'll arrive at like three distinct pathways. Okay. One is like if you use high doses for like moderate periods, what happens? If you use low dose in a high period of exposure, what happens? And also if you have let's say frequency, I think we need to rearrange this. This is like actually a little bit confusing. Let's do one thing. I think the scope of impact should be like further down, and this one should be like upfront, I think. Hi, Syed. Syed, are you aware of what's going on here? I believe that you must be confused as to what's going on.
Yes, I'm a little bit confused actually. I recently
worries.
joined.
No worries. I'll explain to you. See, what we are doing is basically we are conducting these brainstorming sessions every month. What we'll do is like we'll just like discuss a certain topic and then like brainstorm around it together. Because like one of the reasons why we started the debate club was basically that we have a space for people to come together and discuss things openly, because like we don't have any platforms that actually like help us in doing this. Every platform, like if you look at like online social media platforms, it's so hard to have any substantive conversations. And a lot of people end up just abusing you if they disagree with you or something like that. So we wanted to have like create a space where we can engage in deep intellectual conversations in a meaningful sense, like respectfully, without like throwing insults at people who disagree with you or something like that. So that is a whole intent behind the debate club. So every week we have these debate sessions where we talk about certain controversial topics, and we come together on Zoom calls and discuss these things. So that's the main purpose of the debate club, to enable like high quality intellectual conversations among general public. And one of the things that is also a point of concern is that we don't have enough discussions that are outcome oriented. The problem is that way too many people just think that if you voice your opinion, that's the end of the conversation. You've done a great job or something. But I personally believe, a lot of people believe that citizens should engage in like productive and substantive conversation which are outcome oriented, so that like we as citizens of society, we can assist in like framing the solutions, and we can also educate ourselves simply by engaging in conversation. So every week on Wednesday 7 p.m. we have these brainstorming sessions where we basically
Okay,
like
stop,
take a certain
stop.
topic. Raghu, can you please mute yourself? So we take a certain topic, and like we come together as a group and discuss these things. So what you're seeing on your screen is basically a topic that we started discussing a couple of weeks ago. So the whole point of this series of brainstorming sessions, we have like 4 sessions. So what we do is that we take a certain topic, and then we have like 4 different separate sessions where we come together as a group of people and discuss, like how do we solve this problem. Because like at the end of the thing, like at the end of the series of sessions, we'll have like a plan for how to actually go about something. So the topic that we took for this month, right, September, is basically a legal framework for drug regulation in India. So we're basically like working on how do we actually like classify drugs, and then like how do we create a legal system that actually makes sense. Because right now whatever we have is like there is no meaning. Like it makes no sense in a lot of cases. And for example, like tobacco is legal, alcohol is legal, and then you have like marijuana, which is somehow illegal, even though like health wise it is not, is doing just as much damage as tobacco. Like there is tar, there is like all these things. When you combust these herbs, and then like the smoke goes into your lungs, it causes just as much damage. But somehow tobacco has a huge industry, and it is a cancer causing thing, and it is legal. But then there is not enough evidence of like marijuana being causing all these like huge health issues. but still it is somehow illegal. So it kind of doesn't make sense. So what we did was like we came up with a way to classify drugs into like in a very objective way. So what you're looking at here is basically like a framework that we came up with, where you take a certain drug. Like, we took a bunch of drugs like nitroglycerin, cigarettes, and CBD oil, THC oil, 40% alcohol, 90% alcohol. All of these are like different products. And then you're basically measuring the impact of this drug on various dimensions. You're looking at the impact of this drug on the physical aspect of the person consuming the drug, emotional aspect, psychological aspect, spiritual aspect. And then you're looking at various factors in terms of like, what is the frequency of exposure? What happens to your emotional health when you have low exposure during a long period of time? So like this, you'll just like map out different pathways of like how this drug interrupts your system in different dimensions along these pathways. And you'll measure the impact on various things. For example, frequency of exposure, period of exposure, these are like two separate things which are like configurations of the use of the drug. And then the rest of it is basically the impact of the use of that drug. So you have things like scope of impact. The scope of impact is basically when somebody is consuming this drug, is it affecting nobody, or do you not know the scope of impact, or is it like affects only the part of the individual? For example, if you use a certain drug and if it only affects your lung health, but otherwise you're okay, then we'll select this thing. We'll just like mark it as 2 for this dimension. If it affects the entire individual, then we'll select as 3. And then like if it affects others in vicinity, for example, if you smoke a cigarette, people around you are also getting affected. It's not just you. And if there are certain drugs that are affecting people in large numbers, then you'll select this one. So like this, you'll select like various like points for each dimension. A balance of effects is like, is it having positive effect or negative effect? Because like, for example, if you take caffeine as a drug, because caffeine is medically classified as a drug, even though people don't look at it as a drug. Caffeine is a drug, scientifically speaking, and it has certain impacts. So maybe like it causes like a certain positive impacts on your emotional health or like physical health or whatever. There are like certain studies that show that coffee has like positive health effects if consumed in certain doses, right? Or if it's negative, if it's neutral, or if it's like causes harm to the system. And then you have like severity of effects. Is it like mild to none, or is it moderate, severe, extreme, fatal? Permanence of effects. How permanent is the effect of using the drug? For example, if you inject like high doses of like methamphetamine to your system, it can cause like permanent like effects on your system. It can cause like a lot of like dependence. So there is also a scope of dependence. Is it 0, low, moderate, high, certain? And probability of impact, like how likely is it that you're going to have these impacts? Specificity of impact, like does it affect everybody, or only affects people with certain predefined conditions, or affects most people, or affects nearly all or everyone? And then you have like cost to society. For example, if you take cigarettes as a thing, right? If somebody is smoking cigarettes and they're throwing the cigarette butts on the ground, it is like a like civic expense for the roads to be cleaned up. And also there is like health expense. People can if they suffer like lung damage, and like there is a cost to their family. There is a cost to the medical like healthcare system. Like there are many things to look at. And also reversibility of effects. So like this, there are like multiple dimensions that we are measuring the impact of the drug on. So we did this because like we want to have a comprehensive way of measuring the impact of a drug before you make a decision about like how to treat that drug. Do you want to treat it like a classified substance, like prohibited substance, or do you want to treat it like something that is like lighter, or do you want to treat it like something that is very detrimental? Like that, there are different classes. Actually, if you look at the US regulation system for drugs, right, they have like several schedules. They have like schedules 1 through 5. Schedule 1 is like for really prohibited substances, like extremely dangerous substances, like that have a high scope of dependence. And then schedule 2 is like a slightly moderate substances. And then like schedule 4 or 5, these are like everyday drugs, like caffeine and sugar and all the things. So this is the nature of what we've discussed so far. So we've had 4 sessions planned in total. The first 2 sessions, the first one, we were just talking about like how do we frame this problem? How do we go about like talking about this. And then the second one, we wrapped up on these classification protocol. So this was the classification protocol, like, based on the pathway, we come up with the various classifications. So you see here, you see the pathway, right? A pathway is basically, like, for example, you see like P, E, and S, right? P stands for physical, E stands for emotional, and then S stands for spiritual, like that. Actually, we need to differentiate between physical and psychological. So you can say PS. So, and then this is just examples, like saying that, okay, if a certain drug follows a certain pathway, let's say that nitroglycerin, right? Nitroglycerin is used to make dynamites and things like that. So if this drug, it is not a consumable drug, but if you have this drug, you can actually manufacture dynamites, and then that can affect the society at large. You can actually manufacture explosives at home. And if you manage to do that, then that is something that has to be like a prohibited substance, right? The law has to have a grasp on how we treat that substance, because the scope of impact is so high if we don't regulate it. So like this, we are following different pathways. So we'll have like, identified pathways, which are, if a certain drug follows a certain pathway, then, it automatically gets classified as a Schedule 1, a Class 1. Similarly, if it follows a combination of like couple of different pathways, then again, we'll classify it as Schedule 1. Like that's like, we have to like basically outline all the different pathways that can exist. And this process itself is like a very subjective process, no matter where you look. We are just like trying to make sure that we are making it as objective as possible, so that like there is clarity as to what mechanism, what was used to classify this substance. Because right now, if you look at it, there is no rationale for why they put certain drugs into certain categories. There is no transparency. So doing it like this actually promotes a more scientific approach to drug regulation, drug classification, and also like, communicating to the society as to what's going on. Because there are like people who are actually benefiting from illegal substances, and it will also make it difficult for them to lobby for laws that promote their business. For example, if like tobacco industry is famously known for having like a, like it's such a huge industry that even though there are people who are suffering, like large numbers of people are suffering from the use of the drug, they're able to like lobby the governments to like pass laws in favor of their industry. So that kind of thing will get eliminated if you have this kind of a scientific approach to classifying drugs. And that's why we're doing this. We are doing it more as a exercise for ourselves to sort of like get clarity on like some of these things. We are also learning a lot of things as we do this. So I hope that gives you guys some clarity on this.
So today will we have let's say if there are like 5 classes, we'll be discussing how these classes will be regulated.
That's what we're going to discuss today. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that
can
is
I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's say like there are two contradicting studies about one drug. So how do you identify or classify like which is right, which is wrong?
Yeah, like I said, there is a subjectivity element associated with this, because like every drug, right? Especially if it's a synthetic drug, when it's discovered, you don't know much about the impacts, the long-term impacts and things like that. So that's why we have like a rating here, which is unknown. We don't really know for sure. So we need to have like certain protocols as to how we treat drugs with the kind of like an unknown instance. And also we need to like, and actually we came up with certain like provision for, in case a certain pathway is not established, but there is sufficient information to suspect its validity in that pathway, and that pathway seems to belong to a higher priority class, we can preemptively put a restriction on the drug product until more definitive information is secured. Okay, like for example, let's say that there is a I don't know if you guys know this, but there is a drug called crocodile or something.
No.
This is like, I don't know, like if it's like safe for work to look at that, but it's like very, very disturbing. Some of these effects of these drugs.
Can you just give us a summary, like what does?
Yeah. So I'm showing you. This is like the side effects of crocodile. crocodile is basically an injection. Okay, this is like it's an intravenous injection it's an opioid that is like injected into the veins, and it's a Schedule 1 substance in the US. And what it does is, it's also called like Russian magic or something. Sorry, say that again. Who said that? Santosh, you were saying something?
Sorry. My audio got unmuted. Sorry.
Okay. So crocodile is what it does is it is injected, and within 2 to 3 minutes, it's a fast acting drug and 10 to 15 times more potent than morphine. So morphine is a painkiller and 3 times as toxic. So there is a euphoric effects. Any kind of painkiller will have like euphoric effects on your system, but then there is a high withdrawal symptoms. So what will happen is blood vessel damage. That's the first thing that happens. It actually, like, as you inject the drug into your veins, it will damage the blood vessels and open ulcers, gangrene, skin and soft tissue infections, need for skin grafts and surgery, limb amputations. Actually, if you see some of these people who are addicted on this, right, their flesh will be rotting. You'll have like maggots coming out of their hands where they're injecting. That's how bad it can get. And the people are so addicted, they don't even care. They'll still go for it. Rotting gums, tooth loss, bloodborne virus transmission, HIV, and all these things. Bone infections, liver and kidney damage, overdose. People can die easily from this. So this is a drug, and this was something. These are like synthetic drugs. It's not like a naturally occurring substance or something. It's just like synthetically produced, and it's synthesized from natural substances. But it's a high potency, and it's these are like people inventing and creating new synthetic research chemicals, and this is one of those. So when somebody introduces something like this into the market, what happens is, obviously, you've seen at least one case. You don't need to do long-term studies to classify this drug as a Schedule 1 substance. Okay, so you can immediately classify it as long as you have like one extremely high case, like high, what can you say, like high impact case of this use. Not just overdose. See, overdose can happen with anything.
Okay.
You can overdose on coffee. You can overdose on water. If you drink enough water, you can die.
I have a question that what type of the happiness that the crocodile give to the person who inhale that?
What do you mean happiness that gives to?
Actually, someone get the drug that anyone get the drugs that he needs some happiness or something that. So I'm asking that time.
So you're saying that there is a certain positive effect of the drug too. How do you factor that in?
Yeah, well, some of the positive and the negative impact of the drug. But I want to ask why the people are addictive of that drug.
You ask me why do they get addicted to these drugs?
Yes.
Okay, so do you drink coffee?
Because there is a negative impact of that drug. Yes, I have drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah, so there are like negative effects to coffee as well. If you drink it in large quantities, it can like make you like very irritable if you don't have it. But you still go for it because like it is within your acceptable things, right? But with drugs like these, right, what happens is they just don't, like, once you get addicted to the system, they don't have the self-control anymore. And they'll actually, a lot of people, what happens is they will get addicted to a substance, and they will go and rob places to just to fuel their drugs. They will empty their savings, they'll sell their properties, they'll go homeless, then they will start robbing people so that like they can sustain their drug habit, because it leads to such a profound loss of self-control psychologically. So that is how you will classify something like this. For example, if you were to take crocodile as a drug, let's actually do that. Let me just get this crocodile. Yeah. And I don't want to show you guys the images of like some of these look like it looks insane. Like you can look at it on your own, because like I'm recording the session. I don't want to, it's going to be posted on YouTube as well. So I don't want to show you guys the images, but you can look at it at your own pleasure or displeasure, however you choose to look at it. But it is pretty extreme. And the problem is that people, like I said, people lose self-control, and that is something that they just stop thinking. They know that it's bad. Even if you look at like people who are smoking cigarettes, they know it's bad, but they just don't have the self-control. It's the same thing at just like a very, very fast pace. Cigarettes will take a certain number of years into like, it goes into health effects. Same with alcohol. But crocodile it's going to take like probably months of like regular use till you get to a point where it's like insanely visible, the effects. Even weeks, I would say. Like I said, it damages your blood vessels easily.
Do you think porn can be also taken into drug abuse? It's not specifically, but kind of digital drug.
That's a very good question. I think we are looking at physical substances right now. So basically, because physical substance is something that you can easily like regulate. That's why you need the regulations. But actually, fundamentally it is similar. The effects of porn on your brain. It also causes dependence. It also causes like changes in your neurological patterns and things like that. It has harmful effects, of course. So
now,
I think we can apply the same principles to also classify digital stuff. But let's have to think about like what other kinds of things. Like porn is just like a very specific category. I mean, maybe we can also like look at like violent content or something like that as well, because that is also something that people get addicted to. There are people who specifically get addicted to like.
But that type of content does not appeal to a masses, na? Like it just applies to only a small subset of the population. But
but having a framework like this, right? The whole point of it is that it's applicable on a variety of cases. You're not just you're not cherry picking and applying these things. The principles are the same, so you can apply it for anything. And I think even for this, right, we can probably apply porn as well. Frequency of exposure, period of exposure. These are very abstract enough that you can apply it to even non-physical substances. And scope of impact. Is it affecting only you or the people around you? So these are applicable for that as well. So balance of effects. This is arguable. Like, I think over long term, you will have like negative effects, severity of effects, permanence of effects, scope of dependence, probability of impact. Because for example, porn is something that not everybody gets addicted to it. There are very few, like certain kinds of people it creates the dependence on. So here you will not have like a certain probability of impact is like let's say moderate chance of impact. Like we can look at the data and then figure out what this is. And the specificity of impact, do you need to have like pre-existing conditions?
Again, it gets classified into like just like we classified alcohol.
Yeah, exactly.
Porn gets like the spectrum of porn is very wide, right? So it's probably kind of very hard to classify it because of the variations on the spectrum of it is.
Yeah, exactly. So we can that's why we'll have like different classifications of porn, like saying the soft porn, hardcore porn, or like violent porn. We can have like different kinds of like commodities. And cost to society as well, like because the pornographic industry is also tied into like sex trafficking, because certain kinds of people, what they do is like they prefer younger like people to act on the screen or something. And so there are like actually like these people who go around like seducing young men and women into like into this industry. There are a lot of people, they what they do is like they go and like seduce somebody and then make them a boyfriend, girlfriend, something. And then they'll say like, you come here, I'll get you a job as a model. And then they just like push them into the pornographic industry. And that is a cost to society, because like that is somebody's child. And also like it has like various other secondary expenses to society, not just like in terms of like actual monetary cost, but also like psychological cost as well. So there are like a lot of other things that we can put in here, and reversibility as well. Like if you get addicted to your porn, there are like certain neurological changes that happen. That I don't know if you guys know this, but like there is something called PIED, porn induced erectile dysfunction. So people who are addicted to porn, they can only react to digital content. They cannot react to a real human being anymore. Like if you actually put them in next to, like for example, if a guy is like addicted to porn, and if you put them next to an actually attractive, like let's say there is the woman that he's looking at on screen is appearing next to him, his apparatus is not going to work. he has to look at a screen. Only then his body will respond. So there are like that. There are like different things, but to a certain degree, they are reversible. If you have like rehabilitative measures where you're diminishing the exposure to porn, and like also like doing other things like therapy and psychological and like emotional therapy and things like that, it can reverse over time. So it is not as permanent. So like that, we can classify. We can use the same system to classify various commodities that cause these negative impacts. So it's not just for physical substances, I think. So that was a good point, actually. I didn't think about that. But yeah, the framework that we have developed, it's actually very universally applicable because it's abstract enough. So we had planned like 4 sessions. So September, the whole month of September, every Wednesday we will connect at 7 p.m. to like discuss this. And this is the 3rd session. So last 2 couple of sessions we just like wrapped up with the classification protocol, and this one we're looking at the legal framework around things. And I honestly, it is pretty daunting, to be honest. Like it's very daunting to look at this and map out each drug into different pathways. And before that, we actually have to map out different pathways and put them in different classes. And then only if a certain drug matches one of these pathways that exist here, then it gets classified into class 1, 2, 3, whatever. And I don't know if all that work is within the scope of our calls, because like that is like tedious amount of work that goes beyond brainstorming, right? That goes into like actual intensive work. So what I want to do is like let's have like a look at what kind of regulatory frameworks we can have for each of these classes. So what does class 1 mean? What does class 2 mean? So for that, right, I want to look at like US schedule of drug, because like I think the US has like a very it's not perfect, but it's more robust and more transparent than what we have in India. Okay, for example, you look at this. So Schedule 1 drug substances or chemicals are defined as drugs with no currently accepted medical use and a high going into it as detailed as we are doing it. Some examples of Schedule 1 drugs are heroin, LSD, marijuana, ecstasy, peyote, and all these other things. Scheduled drugs and substances are defined as drugs with high potential for abuse, with use potentially leading to severe psychological or physical dependence. These drugs are also considered dangerous. Some examples of Schedule 2 drugs are combination products with less than 15 milligrams of hydrocodone per dosage unit, Vicodin. Vicodin is like a painkiller, and cocaine, methamphetamine, methadone, hydromorphone, all these other drugs. Okay, so these are all like some of these drugs are actually used as medicine. For example, ADHD people get like Ritalin, and it is a classified substance. Only when your doctor prescribes it, you get to take it, and the doctor is supposed to prescribe it only in certain doses, does not cause dependence. So like this, there are certain regulations. So they put this in Schedule 2 so that like you cannot easily access it unless you have certain licenses or you have certain authorizations to access that. Schedule 3 drugs and substances are defined as drugs with a moderate to low potential for physical and psychological dependence. Schedule 3 drugs potential is less than Schedule 1 and 2, but more than Schedule 4. Some examples of Schedule 3 drugs are products containing 90 milligrams of codeine per dosage unit. So this is like ketamine, anabolic steroids, and testosterone. So you can see that there are medical uses for these things. For example, ketamine is used for anesthesia. Like, when they do surgeries, they use ketamine to anesthetize the patients. Actually, let me make sure to confirm
It was
that.
for horse, I guess. Horse anesthesia, I guess.
Yeah, but they also use it
Ketamine
for...
was used for horse anesthesia, I guess.
Yeah, they also use it for human beings. It's a different dilution.
Okay. I see.
It has like hallucinogenic properties as well. So, for example, ketamine is a dissociative anesthetic that has some hallucinogenic effects. It distorts perception of sight and sound and makes the user feel disconnected and not in control. It is an injectable short-acting anesthetic for use in humans and animals. It is referred to as dissociative anesthetic because it makes patients feel detached from their pain and environment. So if there is a surgery, obviously you are going to feel the pain. So they do this. It's actually one of the things that they give. There are other anesthetics as well. It is abused for its ability to produce... Ketamine is also used for facilitated sexual assault. What is its origin? Ketamine is produced commercially in a number of countries. Yeah, how is it abused? Its effect on the mind. Yeah. So So ketamine is Schedule 3 because it has like medicinal uses as well, but the scope of dependence is lower. So they actually classify these drugs into various schedules based on the scope of dependence. Schedule 4 drugs, substances, or chemicals are defined as drugs with a low potential for abuse, low risk of dependence, such as like Xanax, Soma, all of these like medical like stuff, IV drugs. Schedule 5 drugs are substances are defined as class drugs with low potential for abuse. Schedule 4 and consist of preparations containing limited quantities of certain narcotics. Schedule 5 drugs are usually used for anti-diarrheal, antitussive. I don't know what that is, but and some painkiller stuff, cough preparations and things like that. Actually, I want to see if caffeine is classified as used as generally recognized as safe. Okay, they have like it's not. Schedule 3 controlled substances. Actually, they have a huge list of like all the different drugs into different schedules. So what we saw was just examples. They have a separate like listing of all these things. Alphabetic listing of controlled substances. So here you can see. Yeah, they use like chemical names for these things. Cocaine. Even cocaine is class 2. Anyway, so you get the idea, right? Basically, they're classifying it based on scope of dependence, and then they're looking at how to regulate these drugs that are belonging to different classes. So regulations that apply for various schedules of drugs. I don't know if this is Indian or US. It's an Indian thing. So I think we also have the schedule A through Z. This is interesting. I've never really seen this actually.
Yeah, Schedule H drugs are usually widely used regularly by a lot of doctors.
Contains various forms and formats, letters of for application of licensing, contains fee structure for government-run labs, contains various biological products, contains various poisons. This is actually more comprehensive than the US one. Veterinary use, manufacturing of Ayurveda and Siddha, cosmetics, toiletries, soaps and cosmetics, disinfectant fluids. Like it's not done in the vein of regulation as such. They're just like classifying it for the sake of I don't exactly know what. Let's actually look at this closely. Guidelines for storage, sale, display.
Of trading, maybe exporting.
Yeah, like commercial law. Yeah, commercial regulation of things. Okay, this is interesting actually.
Technically, they listed it under drugs and cosmetics, so it's a scheduling of cosmetics as well.
Yeah, drugs and cosmetics rules, but it doesn't really say anything about what the regulation is for these things.
I think the cosmetic segregation or scheduling is only for keeping track of the industry.
Yeah, the licensing and all that stuff.
Licensing, yeah.
Maybe used for research purposes only. Schedule 3 drugs, abuses, medical use. Yeah, so I think we've looked at some of this. I'm not really sure what other information exists. I think obviously this require like a deeper research. But from my perspective, I think what is all this like? It's like Kanpur University. There's so many schedules here. Schedule E, F. Yeah, this is the Indian one. Approved for trial post-marketing surveillance. Yeah. So I think our purpose of like the legal framework is basically to prevent abuse and like prevent cost to society and things like that. So for each class, right, we'll just create a table here. So we'll have one for the class and what kind of substance is supposed to be put in that, and then one for like what kind of like regulations apply in terms of like regulations for distribution, regulations for manufacture, like that. We can add a bunch of things. So class, description of class, and like manufacturing regulations, distribution regulations, and then we can also have like possession regulations, like to what quantity you can possess these things or whatever. So we can broadly classify it into 5 or something. I mean, it's just an arbitrary number. We can see like if it's not sufficient. So description of class is basically that you understand that this is highly dangerous. Has high cost to society. Abuse of this drug has high cost to society and has high irreversibility. So these are like general characteristics of the drugs belonging to this. You can say low reversibility. So class 2 is like moderately. We can just like say do the same things. Moderately dangerous. Abuse has moderate cost to society and moderate reversibility. And then number 3 has like somewhat dangerous, some cost to society, and then so this one is like maybe we can say we'll just like establish the fine like the limit here. So this is like safe to consume, and I think we need to also have certain schedules that are like specific, not just like in terms of danger, but also in terms of, for example, if you have like certain classes of drugs that are meant to be used in only in specific contexts, like for example, medical research, or like for example, ketamine is something that is probably useful in a surgery context, but obviously you don't want people on ketamine on the streets. So we can have like maybe an additional section that is like class 6, or we can say class C as like, or class P prohibited. So this is like or R, actually, the R for restricted to specific use cases, requires license. I don't know if there'll be like some kind of overlap between these things. For example, ketamine can also be in class 2 and then also in class R. So maybe we'll just like, okay, we'll remove this one. So we can just say requires license, authorization. Does this looks sensible? What do you guys think?
It already has that pathway, right? Once it has the pathway, I think all these points are, it comes through all these points, isn't it?
No, see, actually we should have done this first. Like we just arbitrarily came up with 5 pathways, but we don't know what this class actually means. That's what we're doing here. We're saying that class 1 means this. We implicitly assume that that's what it means, but here we are defining it properly. And also like what it's supposed to have, what kind of regulations it's supposed to have. So actually this goes in here actually. Distribution, again, it needs to have licensing.
I think the class 1 drugs cannot be used for distribution. If you want to do the distribution, you have to push it down to other classes. I think that should make sense.
Let's actually look at what the US does. Like they obviously have so heroin, LSD, marijuana. So marijuana has like medical properties. But most of these, right? These ones they don't have any uses, like medical uses of LSD. LSD was used in treatment of anxiety, depression, psychosomatic diseases, and addiction. No approved uses in medicine. The meta-analysis concluded that a single dose was shown to be effective at reducing alcohol consumption in people suffering from alcoholism. LSD has been studied in depression. Positive preliminary results. I think there is also some politics involved in this. I don't know if you guys know this, but like research on LSD was like kind of like banned because like any kind of drug, right, that has like a psychoactive effects, it automatically gets stigmatized. Because no matter who you take, right, if you don't want your kids to be on a certain drug, then automatically people have a stigma on it. It's like a very safe rule of thumb. Like people who are like regulating these drugs, they think about it. What if my son or daughter does this? And they'll just like say, this is like, they're going to behave like this, and I don't want this on the streets. I think there is a very subjective element to it. It's a very cultural component to it as well.
I think it
Sandeep,
is,
go ahead.
yeah, I think it is, if I'm not wrong, it is legal in Netherlands now, and that is being used in micro doses, and it is actually classified as you can actually buy it in the shops.
Psychedelic legalizations. Yeah, there is a movement in Netherlands for sure, because they, I think Netherlands has a reputation for having an open policy for drugs, because they have a tourism industry that thrives on this, right? Like you go to Netherlands if you want to get the high quality weed or like mushrooms or like LSD, ecstasy. There is a tourism industry that thrives on this, so they have a like political and economic precedence for legalizing these things.
Also, they have, I think, they have a hard ban on hard drugs, like with that
Oh yeah, like cocaine and
cocaine. Yeah,
no,
they
yeah,
are
see,
banned.
psychedelics are a different group of drugs than those ones.
Yeah, I think the
Those are like
reversibility is very,
specifically,
very high, I think. In
yeah, actually, if you look at the there is something called dose dependence of effects. Okay, like if with there is a withdrawal symptoms that are, for example, if you take mushrooms, right? Mushrooms will you have to take a certain quantity of mushrooms according to your body weight. But if you do that, and immediately to next day, if you look at the quantity of mushrooms you need to get the same effect, the dependence threshold increases. Like you actually, the not the dependence threshold, the effectiveness, the effective dosage will increase. So now if you took like 4 grams on Monday, and if you want to do the same thing again on Tuesday, like if you look at it, you'll probably need like maybe 5-6 grams to get the same effect. So it keeps increasing. And the reason is that if even if you're continually taking it, right, every week the same amount, it is not going to be effective. Over time you'll just like not feel anything. So I'm just like giving an example. It's like the numbers are all like fictional. So yeah, so it's like different. The psychedelics are like mostly, it is not as detrimental as something like intravenous drugs, intravenous opioids and things like that.
I think the physical, I'm not sure, but I'm presuming that the physical effects of these mushrooms or LSDs are not lethal, or not lethal. What do you say?
Yeah.
Fatal for the, and it is
Yeah,
highly
actually,
reversible. Like let's say if I take it for 1 week, even if let's say if I take it for 5 years on every single day, I think if you just stop it and then after 1 week or 10 days, you will be just fine. I mean, if you're mentally capable of.
I mean, I don't know. We have to do
I
some more
think
research on
that's
this. Like, let's actually look at this, because I don't know if you can if you can say that about every psychedelic. Whatever psychedelic is basically recognized as a drug that has a certain psychological and cognitive hallucinogenic effects. But there are different drugs with different potency. Maybe we'll have to look into this. Actually, let's do this.
Yes.
Psychedelics are like a subclass of broader class of drugs, commonly known as hallucinogenic drugs. These drugs alter one's conscious perception and thinking process in such a manner that the individual's conscious experience of the world is altered in a way that other drugs alter it. Different than other drugs alter it. For instance, central nervous system depressants and central nervous system stimulants simply amplify familiar states of conscious experiences, whereas psychedelics alter these in such a manner that they're no longer familiar states, but to many people represent new states of consciousness. Most of these drugs are believed to primarily affect the neurotransmitter serotonin, although many have multiple effects. There is a misconception that marijuana and cannabis products are hallucinogens. However, these are actually belong to the class of cannabinoids, which is a class of drugs that does exhibit some hallucinogenic properties, but also exhibits properties of stimulants and central nervous system depressants. The hallucinogenic properties of cannabis pale in comparison to hallucinogenic properties of the drugs discussed in this article. Apart from different cultural variations of the use of peyote and other mushrooms, typical users of psychedelic drugs are younger, often fairly well-educated, and often individuals seeking to broaden their spiritual cognitive experiences. These drugs are frequently mixed with other drugs. Individuals who mix psychedelic drugs with other drugs are often putting themselves at risk due to poor judgment and poor potential overdose issues, such as drugs like alcohol, narcotic drugs, and stimulants. Okay. LSD is a drug that even when taken in very small amounts produces very powerful alterations of mood and vivid visual hallucinations. Most often, individuals who take LSD experience euphoria. However, there can be quite a range of symptoms, including extreme well-being to things of severe anxiety, and even total despair and hopelessness. LSD is typically taken in a tablet or liquid form and can be taken in different times. Actually, I don't know if you guys know this, but there are like cultures where they actually consume this as a spiritual practice. Peyote, like the Native Americans consume peyote as a spiritual ritual, and like Amazonians, there are like people in the Amazonian tribes, they consume ayahuasca as a spiritual ritual. And there are actually people who go there for tourism, where they go as a spiritual retreat. They consume the drug in this ritualistic setting, and they have like very profound spiritual realizations. Similarly, DMT is another drug that has actually, I don't know, DMT is a very, very interesting drug. It actually is produced naturally in your system. Psychedelics, LSD, magic mushrooms. Some people prefer the drug by the name of Dimitri or Fantasia, which means illegal to make, buy, possess, or distributed. Some cities have recently decriminalized, but it's illegal under state and federal law. Does it have other names? Okay, better. Is it the same as ayahuasca? Practitioners traditionally prepare ayahuasca using two plants called the latter contains DMT, while the former contains which prevent certain enzymes in your body from breaking down DMT. Many South American cultures use this ayahuasca in religions and spiritual ceremonies and have done so for centuries. What does it feel like? As most of DMT can affect people in very different ways. Actually, there was a documentary on how DMT affects it only lasts for like 10 minutes or something. Within 10 minutes, your body naturally breaks down the DMT into like other compounds, so it loses efficacy. But the 10 minutes, you have like a extremely potent spiritual experience. I mean that I would highly recommend people watch that documentary. I think there is I'll just look up that thing. The spirit molecule, this one, yeah. So people they'll talk to people who have taken this. This on YouTube, available for free, I think. So just like a 1 hour, 10 minutes video, and it talks about like how people, what kind of effect they have. Some people say that they've seen God. It's also called the God molecule or something. I forget exactly what it is.
After consuming that,
if you consume DMT, yeah, like people who consume. Okay, not God molecule. Okay, Higgs boson is a God particle. I'm talking about. Yeah, so DMT is considered one of those. It's called the God drug. So when you take that drug, it kind of like gives you that kind of a really potent spiritual experience. I almost feel like this session is like an endorsement of people to try these things. But yeah, it's a very fascinating topic because like it has all these like very fascinating effects. But then still there is a cultural stigma, and the law enforcement is like is an arm to that cultural stigma around these kind of like psychoactive or hallucinogenic drugs. And the fact that they've even banned like a naturally occurring plant, like you can go to jail for like growing a plant. That's insane. That's how much stigma there is, how much fear there is about like about the alteration of mood. At the same time, you have alteration of mood by alcohol, but then there is a potent industry behind it, and so somehow it becomes valuable. Somehow it becomes like excusable or like okay to celebrate that. But if you look at alcohol, right, alcohol has very potent physiological detrimental effects. You can have liver damage and all these things. It causes dependence. But if you take LSD or like psilocybin is like the psychoactive component in mushrooms. There it's like it is not causing so much dependence, and it's just like giving you like a certain hallucinogenic effect. So if you actually put it through our system, right, of our pathways, it'll actually come out as lower scoring than alcohol. So that's one of the reasons why this kind of a system matters, where like we have like an objective classification.
I've heard multiple times from multiple people,
Mhm.
alcohol is okay, but smoking is not. It's a common theme that I have come across.
Who says this?
And no, it's not like who says it. It is a common thing that I come across from a lot of people who even smoke and drink alcohol, right? They themselves think that alcohol is okay to consume at some times, but
Yeah, it's just
sometimes smoking is not good. It's the
I'll tell you why it is.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why it is, because like there is, see, if you buy a pack of cigarettes, right on there it says like this will cause death. There can be no more of an oxymoron of like a drug that is certain to cause like so much physiological damage with proven certainty, and still it is somehow okay to sell and consume. And alcohol, right? Alcohol, you're not getting those kind of like warnings on the label, on the package. And even before these things came into the picture, there is a certain social acceptance to alcohol because it is associated with like high culture as well. Because like you can buy like extremely expensive bottles of like alcohol, and somehow it is okay because like it is got a cultural significance to it. People celebrate with champagne, people celebrate with drinks, even though like makes you act stupid and also like has physiological effects. Somehow it is like okay because like there is an industry behind it. Even with tobacco, there's a huge industry behind it. If you suddenly shut down alcohol and tobacco business, right, there are a lot of companies or a lot of like distributors, a lot of like people who are marketing these things, they'll lose their jobs, and there's an economic cost to it. So that's where this thing comes, like even for a cost to society, right? From a cost to society perspective, if you make a regulation like legalization of marijuana or LSD into like a commercially viable platforms, suddenly people will start ignoring the negative effects. That's how society works, right? So it's a very strange, like if you look at the basis for a lot of these classifications and regulation policies, it's kind of like arbitrary. It stems a lot from cultural and societal bias.
It's human mind is very graphic, and we have certain things that get settled in a way that if something has happened in our own lifetimes, that's something that the perception of it is entirely different. And if it has been happening for multiple lifetimes before us, we would see it as okay because it has been
like
established.
It's familiar. It's familiar. It's part of our cultural ethos and a bunch of other
and there
things
is a
like
saying like a known enemy is better than an unknown friend or something like that.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's a cultural artifact. Like it's a side effect of like what kind of a culture you've had. See, DMT is actually naturally occurring compound. If you actually, there are like, I don't know if you guys know this, but if you lock yourself up in a very dark space, actually dark retreats. So in a dark retreat, what happens is your body produces melatonin naturally. Okay, so melatonin is something that is used for sleep. Like your body produces that as a marker of like biological cycle. So when you're not exposed to certain amount of like light, your body naturally produces this, and it's kind of like consumed in a certain way in response to light. So there is something called a dark retreat where you will go into a spiritual space, like space where you are subject to absence of light. You must have heard these things, right? Like people going to caves to meditate. What happens is that it increases the production of melatonin in your system, and melatonin, after it gets to a certain point, it gets calcified and it turns into DMT. This is my, if I'm remembering it correctly, I might have to like brush up on this. I don't want to be quoted on this, but so from a like neurological perspective, this is what happens. So it actually, your DMT is produced in your, synthesized in your brain naturally. You don't even have to like inject anything into your system. It just produces in your brain naturally. And the absence of light actually promotes its production. So now you have DMT in your brain, and it is like creating these like very extremely potent spiritual experiences. Melatonin as a regulatory hormone prepares the subtle layers of consciousness to open, allowing the mind and body to perceive everything in a subtlety they haven't experienced before. During this process, the brain synthesizes DMT, which facilitates us to experience love and compassion. So this is the basis for a darkness retreat. So for something like DMT, if I were to like synthetically manufacture DMT in a lab and like produce tablets out of it, suddenly it'll be like obviously like, you know, banned. It's a banned substance actually. So you have to like look at the ethics of this. Where is this stemming from? Why do you not want people to have these spiritual experiences out of drug experiences? So these are questions that don't have like clear answers. So I want to like kind of like close it in maybe like 15 minutes. But yeah, so and we can also add like a column for examples. We just like, you know, I don't want to trace the pathway and everything. Yeah, that's a lot of work, man. It seems daunting just to think about it. So I'm just like gonna put like some examples out of a commonsensical, you know, application of the protocol, of the classification protocol. So for example, class 1, you have like things like crocodile, cocaine, methamphetamine, you know, maybe like other drugs like that. We can just have some examples, and then this could be like ketamine, because like it has like some medical properties. It kind of like balances out maybe. And it's that it's pain.
I want to ask something that these drugs are common in USA or the Netherlands or some places.
Say that again.
I want to ask that is these drugs are common in USA or some other places in India?
Which
like
drugs?
Like crocodile,
Actually,
ketamine.
so like I said, ketamine is like medically used.
Actually, I heard first time in this session about these type of the drugs and things.
Yeah, I mean, these are like I think they I think it's got a story behind it. So you can see dust, crocodile, neopi. These are all like, you know, homemade versions of synthetic opioid drugs, and people do this like on their own, and then they just like sell it in the streets. Trank is another drug that is very, very dangerous.
Okay. Actually, I only heard in the movies and the web series that Pablo Escobar and these type of the drugs. First time I heard that this is the reality and something.
Yeah. See, crocodile is a cheap substitute of heroin. Heroin is something that is used to like, you know, inject into your veins. Crocodile is similar to that. So you have like left with scaly skin, rotting wounds. You will actually see like, you know, I've seen people with like their bones will be visible from the outside because their flesh is rotten away. Maggots are coming out, and then you'll see their bones. You'll see if you look at their arm, you can see their 2 bones in there. People will still walk around just like that. It's like zombie. It's also called zombie drug, I think. A strong non-opioid or tranquilizer used to sedate horses, deer, and other large animals. It was first detected by drug authorities in the early 2000s in Puerto Rico, and yes, since circulated there in limited areas in American Northeast, such as Philadelphia. But the drug has now been detected in nearly every state in the country, and according to drug information, is possibly mixed by local dealers. $6 per kilogram on Chinese websites. So illicit drug suppliers can maximize their profits by using it in bulk up their more expensive fentanyl. So fentanyl is a huge epidemic in the US. Like they, you know, like China produces all the synthetic fentanyl, and then like it comes through, they ship it to South America, and from there it goes to the US, and it's actually killing a lot of people in the US. Necrotic wounds. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Necrotic wounds, like it causes like tissue death. Ultimately, they will have to cut off your legs or arms or whatever, wherever you have the tissue death. Yeah, man, these are all like I don't know if India has these things, and even if there is, right? Actually, Punjab has a huge drug epidemic.
What the Punjab, like the movies? They share some things.
Every third person is hooked to drugs other than alcohol and tobacco. That is insane. That is like literally 33% of the people in the population. Heroin and intravenous drug abuse. Actually, I think it's coming in from Afghanistan and Pakistan, because like Afghanistan is a major producer of opium, and heroin is like produced from opium. So when for example, Taliban is actually like a huge benefactor of the opium production in Afghanistan. So they'll produce the drugs, they'll sell the drugs to fund their Taliban initiatives. And that drugs are coming into Punjab because Punjab is very close in border to Pakistan. So they smuggle these drugs in, and that's probably why there is a huge epidemic in Punjab. The epidemic is caused by younger generation, alarming dimension in India, cultural values. So even methamphetamine is being found in Punjab. Every third male and every 10th female student have taken into drugs, and one pretext or the another. And 7 out of 10 college going students are into drug abuse. 7 out of 10, 70%. That's insane. But anyway, so this thing.
Considering all this data, what is the point of even if they are illegal, they are using it? So it does comes down to the responsibility of the government to get it transparent. I'm not sure, but I have a feeling that they have to regularize it and legalize it in a certain way, because they're just hiding behind the curtain that it is illegal and it's not our problem.
So what are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting, even see, let's say if let's say sorry, what is it?
Methamphetamine.
Methamphetamine, right? So let's say if it is a highly potent drug, and what is the percentage of the population being affected? They have to legalize it, and they have to regularize it, and they have to keep an eye on it for the distribution. Then it comes to a point where, okay, if the government itself is distributing it, isn't it how you say, more easier for everybody to access it? But my point is not the way you access it has to be very how you say, channelized.
I mean, good luck getting re-elected once you do that, man.
I know it sounds counterintuitive, but as the data shows, that what is the point? I mean, of course, I understand there is a political angle to it. Yeah.
No, what do you think is the beneficial side effect of like legalizing? What do you think is going to happen?
See, I don't think the situation is not going to change. What I'm trying to say is,
at least you can make a profit out of it.
Not even the profit. What I'm trying to say is, you have See, in the name of that we have just read an article, right? In the name of one drug, they are selling another drug. They are diluting it with some cheaper version of it.
Yeah, we talked about this, right? We talked about spiking of drugs in illegal markets. That these things happen all the time, and you can prevent it by legalizing certain things. But for example, something like methamphetamine, right? You're if let's say that you're let's say that I'm selling methamphetamine in the pharmacy, the government is approved it. Yeah, anybody can take it, and let's say that you are also diluting the drug, so that like you're not having severe side effects and all these things. But the problem is, if that is happening, then there is still going to be people out there in the street selling it for cheaper, with higher potency, more accessible. You don't have to have a doctor's license, I mean doctor's prescription or anything. It will still be there. The illegal market will still be there. These things will still happen, and you are not doing anything to help the people who have already become victims of this. And legalizing it will also like embolden the people to get into this as a dealer. But I don't think there is any beneficial effect of like legalizing it. What should happen, you need to, it's like this is classic law enforcement. You have to basically trace the pathways of production and distribution, and then choke it at the root. And that root is basically where it is manufactured and produced. So that is the only effective way of like preventing this. Like if suddenly the market, like the supply of these drugs stop, what do you think the people are going to do? They're going to go for other things. Some of them will go for other things. Some of them will come out of it, and they'll spend a certain amount of time in withdrawal, and they'll just like go back to normal lives. So you have to like choke it at the production level. And from my perspective, right, like if you look at this as a cyclical problem, at some point or the other, people are always going to innovate. All these people who are doing producing these drugs, they're doing it for monetary benefits. So there is an incentive there. So if you ban one drug, they're going to produce another drug, and they're going to figure out a different way to do those things. So it is going to be like a constant battle, and you have to do that. And it is kind of like insane that Punjab is having this kind of like an epidemic, and you really have to like wonder like what is going to happen, because at that level of extreme, right, it becomes like a societal, like like a national burden almost. Because what are these people going to do? They're going to be a burden on the healthcare system. They're going to be a burden on society. They're going to be unemployed, and they're going to like result in human beings are basically resource as well. So society,
Yeah,
human.
of course.
So you are basically diluting the quality of the efficiency of the human beings in society. So there is a huge cost to society because of these drugs. But unfortunately, like there is no standard in terms of like how you enforce these laws. That is why we are doing this. For example, mushrooms are also like the same level of banned as heroin and methamphetamine, which makes no sense, because like it is not causing as much of a cost to society as these things. So, and also it's a naturally occurring substance, which is not even processed. But all of these other things, they are highly processed and highly synthesized to have these effects. And let's say we want to close it in 5 minutes. But let's just finish this. Manufacturing regulations requires license. Somewhat dangerous abuse has some cost to society. I think this one, manufacturing can have like regulations requires. So we can have a cap on quantity, because like a lot of these are like quantity dependent laws as well. Like for example, if you hold like 10 grams of weed versus like 2 kilograms of weed, there is a difference in how the law is applied. We'll just like make this illegal. Honestly, I'm just like kind of like making it arbitrary, but it has to make sense. Like there is a standard to each of these. Like it makes sense as to because this is actually an arbitrary definition. We are just like creating synthetic classes, and then like we are just like saying that this class, if it is of this nature, then these are the things that apply. So safe, you have like alcohol, quantity-based punishments. You can have like, actually safe is like not alcohol. I mean like caffeine. Here you have like alcohol. I actually want to like make it really expensive, quantity-based punishments, and also like highly. This will be like a huge detriment. You know, it'll make it. You can say moderately expensive. Would say like marijuana, psychedelics.
Right now, I don't think there is any regulation for amount of alcohol you can possess, right?
Yeah. Psychedelics, hallucinogens. I would actually put this as lower risk than alcohol and tobacco. And caffeine, sugar. Actually, sugar, I'll put it in the same category as hallucinogens. It is, man. It is like, actually, I don't know if you guys know this, but ban on high drinking, let alone sugar. But if any country becomes even closer, it will have to be Singapore. Actually, that is like some Quora stuff. Actually, I did.
No, there is no ban, but I think I think I'm the one who brought up the point about sugar. There is 40% tax, extra tax on processed sugar products in Italy. I guess.
Not no. I think there was some Scandinavian country that has a. Norway. Taxes sugary drinks, fast food, and restricts delivery. Okay, it's still a sugar tax.
Yeah, there is sugar tax.
That's actually a smart move. It's a great way to make money.
Yeah. I thought
at
about
the same
it
time.
many times, and I think this will never happen. And then I came across this news, and then I was like, yeah, they can do it. They want to do it, they can do it.
Yeah.
Because junk food cost to society is very high, so it should have higher taxes. And
Exactly. Yeah, you need to tax based on the cost of society. Let's just note it down.
That tax has to be redirected towards the cleaning up of. If some product is causing some negative effect on society and environment, it should be priced in certain way that the financial taxes should be able to mitigate the effects of it.
Yeah. So we've looked at the classification stuff. We will refine this further, but next time. Actually, we were supposed to do both these together. I think this is what we've done. I think the next session is going to be about like us cleaning up things, like presentation and wrapping up and tying loose ends. So I think we can close here, guys. Thank you so much for joining.
Yep.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you, Syed.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. And it was an amazing session that I'm new in the Bangalore, and I'm a recent pass out student. It was an amazing session. I want to improve something and gain some knowledge.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Syed, for sharing your perspective. Actually, we plan to do this on every Wednesday. Like we'll take a separate topic each time. For example, next month, like, we can do something like how do we improve the education system or something, and we can
Yes.
look at like take societal problems.
I was about to submit the debate topic of for education actually.
Yeah,
I'm
because
not sure
these
if
are,
you have already done it.
I mean, it depends on the topic statement. Like we need to look at the topic statement that is like for a debate session, it's important that it is controversial. Because without a controversial topic, you don't have like a this side versus that side. Then you don't have a debate. You just like have people agreeing to everybody. That is not necessarily a productive session. So you need to frame it in such a way that it is productively, like, it's bringing together people of opposing viewpoints, and then you have a productive conversation. But if not, right, if education is a very important topic as well, for sure. So we'll have like who have something that is more of a brainstorming session where if everybody's on the same side, let's figure out a solution for it instead of like debating it.
Yeah. I want to suggest something that can we add the topic that education system, how we can improve the education system using the artificial intelligence. And nowadays, the artificial intelligence is like a PhD level of the human.
I mean, I have special, like opinions on this. I think that the use of AI is kind of like bloated, as in like people overestimate what you can do with AI.
Exactly.
For sure. And I don't think that AI is doing anything fundamentally to change things. It's making certain things easier for sure. But
we can use,
there are like risks
you
to
can
it.
use,
If I have to put it, AI doesn't exist yet. So they're just using the name. I just want to put it out there. AI doesn't exist yet.
I think it's just like a very superficial imitation of like actual intelligence.
They're getting there, but it's not anywhere close. They will get there someday, maybe like down the line, 10, 15
for
years.
sure, yeah.
Optimistically, but right now AI is a buzzword everybody using for the age-old machine learning that existed 30 years ago. Okay.
No,
I think the O1 model, the recently released by the OpenAI.
which one?
O1 model.
O1 in the Omni
O1.
model.
Omni model, yes.
Yeah. No, we've seen that, man. So, yeah, it is impressive for sure. But from an educational perspective, right? I think it has more utility. Okay, you know what? Let's actually discuss this as a debate, because like there does seem to be like some kind of like potential for disagreement, right? So you guys know how to suggest a topic on our forum. So you just go to debateclub.info, and here you can suggest a debate topic. Okay, use this form to suggest a topic, and let's have a conversation on this. I think that's actually a good point. Like the use of AI in education is going to be revolutionary. Maybe we can have that kind of a topic, and people can agree or disagree, and we'll have like various perspectives, because there is general misconceptions about AI. We can bring those out. We can talk about those things, and we can also get people involved who are maybe like more of an expert on AI, and then they can offer their thoughts and perspectives. So maybe Syed, you can post this suggest this topic, and then like we can have this. We'll schedule the session based on when the next available slot is.
Could you please share the link in the description in the comment section?
Yeah, it's thedebateclub.info. I'm gonna put it in the chat, but it might disappear after the call is done. So I'll just like put it in the chat. You just click on it, and then
Sure. It's done.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so
See you
much.
next week. Yeah. Syed, please do join our Saturday session. Saturday 11 a.m. we have these debates. Okay.
Okay. Kindly share me the link also.
So are you on the WhatsApp group?
Yes, I am in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah. So we'll post the link. So all of these like events are pinned in the WhatsApp debate sessions group. Okay. So you just like click on that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. See you guys.
Have a good day.
Bye.